Good. All right, good to see everybody. Thank you for being here for another year. Appreciate you guys covering our program, and thank you for telling the stories of our players and this team. Team 124 in the history of Ohio State basketball. So we're excited to get the season started here. This is, preseason is talking season, but it's really about the work, the quiet, lonely work here. So we're excited to get started with that. I'll go ahead and open it for questions here.
Go ahead, start.
Yeah, Coach, I think everyone's wondering about Justice, obviously missing all but 2 games last season. He told me that he feels like he's 110% and that he's even better than he was the last time Buckeye fans got to see him. Where is he in his progress and coming back, and do you think he can be the player that he was before or even better?
Well, the last time we saw him, he wasn't real good. That was Akron. He struggled in that particular game. So I think Justice looks great. He looks great, and he is healthy. I think he's a young man who's anxious. He's anxious to get out there. He's anxious to be healthy, and he really wants to stay healthy. And for a kid like him who had a whole season taken away from him, with the exception of that one game, you really want it for him. He was a really important part of our team that was a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament and had a good year, and he was going to be a really, really important part of last year's team. So he'll be a captain. We're excited about what he's going to be.
In terms of the freshman class, obviously, like on paper, in terms of the rankings, it's your best class that you've had at Ohio State. But I'm wondering, beyond just that, now that you've had time with them, what else kind of stands out about them and makes them maybe special compared to groups past?
Yeah, I think we have four freshmen that are all going to they're all going to play. They're all going to play a role in this group for sure. Bruce, Roddy, Bryce, and Felix are all capable of helping this team and playing. They'll go through some ups and downs. They'll have some challenges, but all 4 are going to play. You're going to see them a part of every game for sure, and we're excited about that. We're excited about the potential of that group for sure.
We're right next to Rob Aller.
Chris, along those lines, how much do you have, you've been through this before, how much do you have to gear it back when you have those 4 coming in? Do you have to just go fundamentals?
Yeah. It's been more than we've ever had to do, to be real honest with you. Maybe with the exception of our first year when we were implementing a different, coaching style, a different system. But it's been more than I've ever had to do, with this number of young guys. And it's not just that they're young guys, they're young guys that we're going to count on to play. So I think speeding up their development, we were just talking about it in film. There are things that probably we can't see right now even that are going to happen in games, and we're going to scratch our heads and say, where did that come from? Well, it's an experience. And you try to project and get ahead and see as much as you can some of the things that are going to come up, but we know there's going to be moments that are going to be head scratching with those, with the general inexperience that those 4 are going to have. But if we can play them through that early in the year, we're excited about what it can be.
Is that what keeps you up at night? I mean, at this level, you don't have the luxury of, when you have these guys coming in, of them just sort of biding time, right? And they've got to play and play well right away. What's that like as a coach?
They do. I think, right now the focus is trying to get them ready. So I'm not thinking necessarily about, opening night as much as just getting them ready. But yeah, I've not coached a team that's probably counted on 4 freshmen as much as this group is going to. Again, there are some real positives to that. And, what can we grow into? If we encounter some bumps along the way, what can we grow into? But I think there's a mixture of feelings. There's certainly some anxiety, but there's some excitement too.
We're in the left, Clay, and then
The uptick you've had in recruiting,
Yeah.
Have you guys gotten better at it? Is it proof in the pudding? Is it a couple guys in the NBA? Is it NIL? But you're stacking them now.
I would say it's a combination of all of those, maybe with the exception of NIL. I think we'll see that in the beginning part, but that's not been promised to any recruit. I think The uptick in recruiting has been really a collaborative work. I think we have a tremendous staff, and I would begin with that. I think we have a staff that has really worked at it. Listen, Clay, I'd be lying if I said that the NBA's success of two guys being drafted, Dwayne also being in the NBA right now, didn't play a role. It's played a major role. It was certainly a question. You're always going to get that question from recruits. Who have you as a head coach and as a staff produced in terms of draft picks or first-round draft picks? So the success of Malachi and EJ being a 3-year guy, Malachi being a one and done, no question plays a role. But I also don't want to minimize the tremendous effort of our staff. And you're right, it's clear that this class on campus and the one we hope to sign here in a few weeks is the best it's been. It's exciting.
Coach, you talk about the freshmen, but this is just a young team all around, because you walked into the locker room with only 2 players that have ever put on a Buckeye jersey, and Suing, I guess, did, but he didn't play last season.
Yeah.
What is that like, and where is this team?
Well, I think it's to be determined. Like I said, this is, I could sit here and talk, but this is really about the quiet, lonely work of every day and figuring that out and growing together. We certainly did some of that this summer, but we're still defining what our group's going to be like. And I think more than any team I ever had, that'll be defined and will probably be pretty fluid as the year goes on, provided we can stay healthy. And that has certainly been a question with our group. I think the evolvement of this group, how this group evolves, can be really exciting. But I think we're determining that on a day-to-day. We'll see how this group works over an extended period of time, and perhaps in a month or two I'll have a better answer.
With this world of the transfer portal, and not just losing players but gaining them, do you think this is kind of the future of college basketball, walking into a new locker room every year? And how much does that change your coaching staff?
Yeah, what I would tell you is most of college basketball has realized what I think sports world is starting to realize with college football. Listen, the transfer portal's been the transfer portal for years for college basketball. It just has been, there's been an uptick in the last 10 years. There's been, I talk to coaches on the road, they have 11 and 12 new players. And I talked to an SEC coach who's got 11 new players. He had 10 new players last year. It's not unique to any specific program. It is the way the sport is now and probably will continue to be. And that's why I appreciate you guys being here, because you get a chance to share the stories of this new group, 3 transfers and a bunch of freshmen. And hopefully our fans can embrace them, because they're a fun group to be around.
With all those new faces, you do have a lot of versatility, it seems like, on this group. And I wonder, when you look at defensively trying to shore up some of the lapses last year,
Yeah.
How much of the versatility of this team was planned because you were trying to get better at that end of the court?
Big part of it, Adam. We have not been good enough defensively the last 2 years. We have just not. We have not been good enough. And I think we have been tremendous offensively. We've been really, really efficient. The numbers would back that up. 2 top 15 teams offensively, but we have not been good enough defensively, and we weren't good enough on the glass either last year. So you combine those 2 things, and there's inevitably a ceiling. So I think a little more athleticism, more versatility, a little more length at the rim. I think were all things that we needed to address. Because certainly you cannot have a poor offense. You got a ceiling if you have a poor offense, for sure. That's the reality. And just like it is in college football and college basketball now, you have to be able to score. But we need to have considerably more balance in terms of what our numbers have been. And for 3 of our 5 years, we have been very good defensively. We just have not been the last 2 years.
And then offensively, with a new, offensive coordinator, however you want to call Jake's role, compared to having Ryan doing so much of the offense, guys have talked about wanting to play faster. You've got a freshman point guard that's going to play a lot of minutes. Well, offensively, how different could this look with some new input there at that end?
Yeah, I think we are more versatile. We have a number of guys kind of in the middle of what you would say your lineup, those 2, 3, 4 positions that are pretty interchangeable, and their skill sets differ some, but they all can dribble, pass, and shoot. They to varying degrees, and they give us a bit of athleticism there. We have a couple bigger guards. A guy like Roddy and Ice are bigger guards. Obviously, Bruce is a man at a young age. But I think that versatility is really critical for us and been critical for us, both defensively and offensively. We do not have, the elite scoring right now of a 19-point scorer like EJ was. We're hoping some guys can grow. So we'll have to have that, I think, with a mixture of guys and perhaps more balance across the board.
Go on. All right, Tony, go ahead.
Chris, I think half the guys I talked to refer to themselves as glue guys. Now, as you're putting together a new team, does that make things easier for you or more difficult because they don't necessarily have defined positions or statuses or?
Well, I'd be curious who said that. I don't need a team full of glue guys. So I'd be curious who all said that, but it's good for certain guys to recognize their value and what they bring, and the fact that they connect a group of sometimes a glue guy gets a bad rap in terms of maybe having less talent and ability. You certainly need some really critical guys that connect the group. Kyle has been that and was that for a number of years here. But you also need some guys that are going to stand out as well. So it's good that guys have recognized their value in that area for sure.
And then looking at the makeup, it seems like we could see more fast break with guys that can rebound and then move the ball and move themselves. Do you expect that to be part of the offense?
I think, I certainly expect us to be able to move better. We really in some ways played we evolved with EJ, but he was a bigger guy kind of at the power forward spot, almost kind of a traditional power forward, and his game grew and evolved. Now it's going to be a little bit more 4 guards around one big guy is what we anticipate. So we'll see. I think we've worked on some things here in the off season that have allowed us to play with more pace and a little faster. Again, I'm excited about the improvement that we feel like we are, and just in terms of our athleticism, that's exciting.
We'll go to the middle. Patrick Murphy, and then right next to it, Dan.
Chris, with all the newness, how important was it this year to have that Bahamas trip and to be able to go there and work on things before other teams are ready to go?
Yeah, Patrick, I think the trip was important. They spent a lot of time in the summer. I think getting away, there was a facet of that was important. Having 2 games that tested us in certain ways was maybe the most important thing, because we were able to come out of that saying, okay, maybe some of our ideas that we thought about certain guys in terms of what their impact could be, he can impact a little bit more. We played strong, older men over there. In the competition, while it wasn't the Big Ten, the Big Ten's been the best league in terms of depth in basketball the last 4 years. So maybe it wasn't Big Ten competition, but it was a good competition. So it allowed us to come out of it with some answers. And I think for a team that understandably we have a lot of questions, it was nice to come out of it with some answers.
You mentioned Justice as being going to be a captain. Zed and Eugene, obviously, you're returning guys. How have you seen their leadership skills develop?
I let the cat out of the bag a little bit. Players voted on captains yesterday, so I guess I have not told the players yet. So can we just keep it in this room right here? Okay. But yeah, Justice will be one. So we'll vote. I'm sorry, what was the other part?
Just the development of Zed and Eugene as leaders, as older guys now in this team.
Yeah, both kids are great kids. Zed and Gene both have new roles with this group. Having said that, they both played important minutes on an NCAA tournament team in a 21 season, so they have experience under their belt. They don't have it in the sense that they have played kind of the frontline roles And I think there's going to be some things expected of them both in leadership and in their daily performance this year that will be new for them. I'm anxious to see how those two handle it along with Justice.
Chris, just to follow up on the point of versatility, do you feel like you guys need to be able to play multiple different styles of basketball, whether you're playing a team like Purdue that's got a lot of size, or maybe you're playing in March and you're playing against a much smaller team?
Yeah, that question comes up a lot, and we talk about it as coaches, and the question comes up when we're talking about Purdue. How are you going to guard Zach Edey? Well, there's one Zach Edey in the country. There's not a bunch of guys that look like him, but I do think there's a way in which you have to maybe play a team that has a big guy as unique as that as you would. There is certainly different styles in the Big Ten. I think there's a consistency to the way maybe Big Ten rosters are built. We have traditionally have a few more big guys in our league than in other leagues. But I think you've seen some teams now move. I know you've seen some teams in our league maybe because they've been frustrated with not advancing as far as they've wanted to. That have gotten a little more versatile, a little more athletic. So I think you'll see that wave in the Big Ten for sure.
Over here on the left, Justin Holbrook and then Spencer Holbrook.
Just a few months ago, Malachi was in here declaring for the NBA, and he talked about his growing pains, allowing him to go through those. The text that he sent you after one of those games. How do you manage that on the scale of 4 freshmen as opposed to just one of them?
Yeah. It was. I think it's a lot of conversations. If you come into one of our practices and you come to a post-practice, you're probably going to see most every day me sitting in one of those chairs with one of our freshmen with my arm around him after he struggled in a practice. I think you really have to normalize struggle for young people when they're trying to do something really hard. Because I think if you don't normalize it, you're setting them up for failure. So as us leading them, we have to normalize struggle as much as possible, and then we have to challenge them with the right response. And the good ones figure out a way to respond the right way. Malachi found a way to respond the right way. You have a choice in those situations. When you're struggling in the midst of a game, or when you're struggling in the midst of practices and you're struggling over and over to respond the right way, he did, and saw the benefits of it later in the season. But there will be a lot of private conversations. We've tried to do that on the front end, but normalizing struggle is a big part of it.
Nowadays with the transfer portal and all of the things that go into being a head coach and being one of us, do you have to have even more alignment with the athletic director, whether it be you and Ryan talking to him more, whether it be you guys talking to Gene, talking to whoever and what along the lines? How much more conversations do you have now compared to a couple years ago when this wasn't a big deal?
Because of NIL?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you always want to have those conversations in that alignment, but in something as fluid as NIL, there were a lot of conversations in the spring that I had with Gene and with Ryan about just sharing stories. Hey, what is happening on the front lines in your sport? Let me share what's happening on the front lines in my sport. Let's both share that with Gene. So that we can have an understanding of the direction he wants us to go when it comes to that. So there's no question. Something just came up this week where I need to call him and have a conversation and kind of get his thoughts. So absolutely.
You guys brought Sean in, and everybody sees 40% three-point shooter who can also do a couple other things. How important is it for you guys to get those other things out and recognize that he's not just a 40% three-point shooter?
For Sean? Yeah, Sean's, I think sometimes you see that, you immediately kind of look at comparables maybe to guys here that have been in the past. But Sean's different. He's a different player than the guys we've had. I think he's looking to, expand part of his game, but he also understands his greatest strength is going to be the fact that he has to be guarded almost all over the floor. He does have some ball skills that I think are good. Positionally, defensively, he's good. He has to continue to grow in that area, but he's got a game that I think is maybe a little bigger, maybe than even what people think. And I think most importantly, he's been a consistent scorer in a terrific program for a couple years in a great league, and that's going to help us.
Stay on the left, Stephen Kitchbaum, and Stephen Meads behind.
Chris, you mentioned a couple of times just how, the game of college basketball has been changing since you've become a head coach. I just wanted to ask you, how has your, your coaching style, not only on the court but off the court, changed since not only you got to Ohio State, but when you started coaching in college basketball?
Yeah, I think you're constantly trying to improve, number one, and figure out what maybe your blind spots are and areas that you got to continue to grow in. And it's really even more important as the game changes. And our game has experienced more change in the last 5 years than any time I can remember. Some of it's been the rule changes, and some of it's just some of the challenges you have as you're learning and growing and learning how to coach young people. But I think it's one of those things where every offseason you're kind of looking at it and seeing, okay, hey, what did we do well, and what can we do better? That's a constant process for someone like myself and our staff who are trying to be lifelong learners.
Stephen Meads.
How have you seen Isaac and Bruce? How have you seen that dynamic working? Do you think those two guys are those skill sets can be on the floor together?
They will be on the floor together. Isaac and Bruce will be on the floor together, for sure. I would anticipate that, because I think Isaac has the ability to play the three, and then maybe even some forward. We'll have some small ball lineups this year where we have some kind of 6'5" and over positionless groups that I think Isaac will be a part of that group for sure. Both those guys will be on the floor a lot. They go at it in practice. It's you got two really strong guys, while Ice is bigger and longer. They are both really physical guys. I think they've enjoyed that competitiveness, but for us to be our best, Stephen, they're both going to have to play together.
All right, we'll go back to the right. Steve Howagen, then Kevin Newman.
Yeah, Coach, Tanner Holden, you see what he did in the NCAA tournament, has such a big game and impact for Wright State, and then comes here in the last few months. Just how have you seen him kind of become a member of this program, and how do you feel some of those skills will translate to what you guys need in the Big Ten?
Yeah, he's been great, Steve. He's been great. I think the biggest thing for him is, and I've talked about this, is Tanner's game is built on, he's a terrific cutter. He's a good athlete. He has scored primarily kind of some outside the three, but a lot of it's been inside. And I think he's going to have to continue to expand his game to be the most effective here in these next 2 years. And I think he's growing in that. He's a really good rebounding guard and wing. His teammates love him. He has been as consistent of worker as we have had on our team. And from day one, he has been as consistent as we've had in terms of working.
Right, sense of ball, it sounds like he played pretty well for you in the games in the Bahamas. Just how are you seeing him kind of make the jump? He was a guy who didn't get to play his junior year of high school.
Yeah.
Some people didn't know much about him. I asked him, it's like, do you feel like you got a lot to prove still? He feels like he does. Just what's your thought on this?
Yeah, no, he's tremendously gifted offensive player, and just a really unique. You're going to enjoy watching him because he's 6'6", 240, and he just moves. He moves exceptionally well at that size, and he's just a really gifted offensive player. Biggest challenge for him is understanding all the other elements, and we've got a really important 2 months right now with him, trying to get him to learn as much as possible the defensive side. But he's a tremendously gifted scorer. I mean, he's just really gifted.
Can I squeeze just one last one?
It's fine with me, Steve.
Magazine I've seen as you guys picked third in the Big Ten. I know that's so far off. It's September, it doesn't mean much, but I don't know, that says a lot that you have an unknown roster of disparate parts, but somebody has seen it, in a sense, say, this team could be pretty good. What's your thought when somebody comes up to you and says, you might have a team that could, despite all the things that could hold you back, that could be there at the end?
It's talking season, right? We're about to work. That's talk. You know, you could probably look and see a bunch of other ones. I do think people have liked the addition of our transfers, Steve, right? And I think they're anxious to see what these 4 freshmen can be. And but it's time to get to work.
Coach, I know you can't speak specifically on recruitments, but when talking to recruits, Jake Diegler's name comes up a lot. What makes Jake such a special recruiter? And, you know, obviously as the guy who hired him, you know, it's obviously
He's in the back. I got to talk about him now that he's in the back.
Well, I tried to usher him out.
No, that's okay. All right. He's great, and Jake knows this. He's tremendous. It really begins with his work ethic. He's a tremendous worker, and he has a tremendous motor when it comes to working. I think sometimes people forget, young coaches forget the number of hours that a guy like him has to be on the phone at night. You know, he's got 2 kids and 1 on the way. It's a lot of work, and he just is a tremendous worker, and he understands Ohio State. He understands the culture of our program. He recruits to that, and he's been tremendous at building relationships with those guys. And you know, he came from Vandy a couple years ago. We've been really thrilled to have him.
And one more quick one. Obviously, LeBron James was here a couple weeks ago. You know, we can't talk about anything about some of the reasons there, but a lot of the players were very excited about getting to beat him for the first time. You know, just what was your impression seeing them meet a superstar like that for the first time?
Yeah, I'm not sure the specifics of what I can speak to regarding that. I would just tell you my experiences in the past with LeBron has been phenomenal. He's just been such an incredibly impressive person. That's probably about all I'm allowed to say. So.
All right, time for a couple more. We'll hear left and then finish with that.
Hi, Chris G-Law with the Lantern. I just want to bounce back to the transfers. Obviously, we talked about Tanner a little bit. What can you kind of tell me about his leadership qualities? What kind of role has he stepped into? And how does he adjust it on and off the court?
Talking about Tanner?
Tanner, yes.
Great worker. He's an everyday guy. He's been, again, one of our most consistent workers. You know, guys don't respect guys that don't work. And he's really respected within our locker room because he works. And I think that's going to allow him to have a voice in the locker room, you know, whatever that looks like as a new player.
When you're assembling a roster and you have the option of going for a high school kid or a transfer portal, there's coaches that could go one way or the other way, and you're clearly you've said your priority is to make sure you're still going for those high school kids. What are those conversations like, and how hard is that to make sure that maybe you stick to that when you might have a transfer option that might be maybe a more immediate fix?
Yeah, it's Adam. It's one of those things where it's a conversation you have within your staff. It's also a conversation that I have with Gene in terms of the vision for building a roster and building a roster moving forward, because obviously freshmen are going to take a little more time maybe than a guy that's been more seasoned. So I think those are constant conversations you have. Even you get specifics about, hey, freshman versus transfer. I've had that conversations we've certainly talked about as a staff with Gene, and we've stuck with the model that we believe we feel strongest about, which is, you know, you're always going to recruit transfers. That's a part of it now. There's nothing wrong with that. Universities, the high major level that recruit 90% of their roster as transfers, that's fine. I understand why they do it. For us, we want it to be mostly freshmen, and then obviously some transfers as well.
Good. Coach, thank you.
Okay, thanks guys.
Yes, Chris.
Thanks, Coach.